The first coding QC was all on JavaScript. Then the second one, we didn't even learn JavaScript. What am I saying? What's up, guys? It is Childlike Kate here with a new video, and in today's video I am going to be talking about my last few weeks in training at Revature. I decided to go ahead and put the last few weeks together so as not to drag out these videos any further than they need to be. So if you would like to know what my last few weeks of Revature training were like, stay tuned. Also, if you have been enjoying these Revature videos, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you are alerted when I drop new videos, and you can stay up to date on what's happening in the life of Childlike Kate. Now let's get into the video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about what happened during weeks 5 through 10 of Revature training, which were the last few weeks of instruction while in training for my cohort. So let's just get into it. So week 5 was that first week of January, right after the new year. And I'm just going to read my notebook to tell you what was covered each week of training. So this is January 3rd through the week of February 7th, weeks 5 through 10. Week 5, we covered ADO.NET, different SQL languages, which are like DDL, DML, etc. And that was it, actually. This week was light on content because we were preparing to present our P0s, which was the biggest individual project that we had to do during training. So we didn't learn a lot of information that week. So week 6 is the week that we presented P0. This was not necessarily a light content week, but the first half of the week was pretty light. Monday was a project work day, and then Tuesday we learned a little bit about SOA principles and RESTful APIs. On Wednesday we presented our P0s, then we learned HTTP requests. After that, we came back Thursday with ASP.NET security and asynchronous programming. Week 7 was all about DevOps, and we actually had a guest instructor come in and teach DevOps because he's like the DevOps guy, apparently. Our instructor was pretty new to DevOps engineering, so she was learning as well and practicing with us. The guest lecturer, he didn't really teach the way that our normal trainer does, like no presentation, not really a demo. He just kind of talked and then would show stuff. I don't know how else to explain that because it was just not clear. So honestly, at the end of the week, I ended up doing my own research on DevOps engineering just to make sure that I was prepared for the QC that was going to be coming up on this topic. This was also a short week because we had Monday off for MLK Day. Week 8, we came back. We had a project work day for P1 on Monday, and I'll go into details about P0 and P1 after this. We had P1 presentations on Tuesday, and then after Tuesday, we went into learning about the front end, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we also learned about test-driven development. Week 9, a little more on front end, but starting to get into back end frameworks, so TypeScript, Node.js, Angular, and some more stuff about testing. And in the last week of instruction, week 10, we learned about Kubernetes and more DevOps stuff. So yeah. Okay, so let's talk about quizzes and QCs, which are meant to assess how you're learning during the training process. Honestly, the quizzes for all these weeks, some weeks we didn't have a quiz, but all the quizzes were the same as usual. I never failed a single quiz. There were some that I just barely scraped by, but I never failed a quiz. Also, I'm sure someone's going to ask about this hoodie. It is by Mayuko. I will link her channel above. Okay, so let's talk about the QCs for the last weeks of training. 2 of these weeks we had coding QCs. So the QC for week 5 was a coding QC, and that was just on C#. That QC had me stressed because I had just come off of feeling like, okay, I need to catch up and figure out what I missed during the time that I was sick. So what I did during the weekend was watch the C# tutorial by Mike Dane that honestly filled in a lot of gaps where I had holes before. But if you're into tutorials, I highly recommend Mike Dane. Anyway, I watched his tutorial to prepare for the coding QC, but no matter how much I knew about the coding syntax, the problem is you need to be able to problem solve, which I can do, but it's going to take me longer. So we had about 3 questions, and each question I came up with a solution, or I came up with an approach. But working it out and writing the solution all took me time because this is something that I'm new to. So it was taking me a lot of time to break down the questions, figure out what variables I needed, then figure out what control flow, what kind of program I need to write to solve this problem, right? The coding QCs are like HackerRank. So you have this really long word problem with all this unnecessary information when it could just tell you the last sentence of the whole thing that's like, write me a program that does this. They could just do that, but instead they give you a whole story about an ice cream truck and 2 addresses and like really random stuff. Everyone did miserably. I don't know if anyone passed that QC. I'm pretty sure most of us got reds because out of the 9 test cases, you needed to pass at least 6 to get a yellow. And most people only passed like 3, if that. So when our trainer went back and looked at everything, she saw some of the common mistakes. She saw the mistakes that the QC team made. So she worked it out and explained what was wrong, and honestly how those questions were beyond like what we had done, because a couple of them were actually like math focused questions, and like, baby, we ain't took no discrete math up in here. I mean, I have, but I struggled when I took that class. So anyway, because everybody did so poorly, they decided to give us another QC the day after. Mind you, our P0s are due in like a week, maybe less than a week at this point. Because I think we did the QC on Wednesday, then we had to do the second one on Thursday. Our P0s were to be presented the next Wednesday. So here I am, stressing about this QC, trying to get it figured out, but I still have to get my P0 together. So that's like a whole other stress that we'll talk about later. Well, my battery died. Then I had to take a friend to the airport. And now it's 7 p.m. and I'm losing sunlight. So let's just try to get this done as quickly as possible. So where did I leave off? I was talking about that first coding QC the dangler took me out. Long story short, I didn't pass the first or the second time, but my trainer could see that I understood what to do, but with the limited time frame that we had, I just wasn't able to get it done. So it didn't really count against me, but that is something that they look out for if you're consistently making reds. The week of P0, we did not have a QC. The P0 project counted as our QC, and I will go into detail about how I scored on that when I talk about the project. The week we learned DevOps, I got a lime green on the QC, which I'm surprised but not surprised. I think I did better than everyone else because due to the way that the guest instructor taught, I knew that I was not going to get any of that information if I didn't go seek it out for myself. So after he taught all week, I spent the weekend going over all the topics. So I was prepared to answer the QC questions. I did my part to make sure that I passed, and then the following week we presented P1. P1 did not count as our QC, so we did have QC again that week. I honestly don't even remember it. I don't remember what I scored. And then the week after that, for week 9, we had another coding QC, which I scored red, but let me tell you what I did. So just like the previous coding QC, there were 3 questions, but this time we had a C# section and a SQL section. And those 2 sections were split up with like maybe 15 minutes of a break in between doing them because each section was timed. For the C# section, there were 3 questions. On the first question, I passed all the test cases. I still had like 50 minutes left. And I was like, wow, that was so easy. And I hit submit. Mostly because the UI design of like submit or go to next question was stupid. So I didn't think, oh, let me scroll back up to the top and click on question number 2. I just hit the green button at the bottom and submitted the whole thing without ever looking at question 2 or 3. So obviously I got a red that week. And then when it came time for the sequel one, I was only able to answer the first question. The second 2, I looked at them, but not in much detail, and we'll talk about why shortly. Okay, so quizzes and QCs out the way. Let's talk about these projects. P0, P1, P2, we'll touch on it a little bit. P0 had me so stressed. Like, I don't even think I can go into how stressed I was. But that stress did not hit in until about maybe 5-6 days before it was due. I had a little bit of stress before. Okay, let me fix that. I had a little bit of stress leading up to P0 being due. I had like 10 to 12 days to do the whole thing, which I think was enough time because some people pretty much had that done in the first 2 weeks before we even learned about databases, and then all they had to do was hook up their database. So I felt like I was good on that front. But then I found out that our QC, when we came back for the new year, was going to be a coding QC, and I got frantic and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to prepare for this because I don't want to fail. I still failed twice because we had to do it again. Failed twice. So I was stressing, preparing for this QC, so I delayed starting my P0 until after QC just to find out that we were going to have to do QC again the next day. So I put off my P0 another day. And that was just the biggest mistake, honestly, because as I mentioned in my top 5 tips of how to be successful, the honorable mention tip was to not stress the QCs because your projects are more important. By the end of these 2 coding QCs, I'm already tired because I had stayed up pretty late, like studying and trying to do practice hacker ranks and stuff to prepare for the coding QCs. And then after that second one, I think I had like 6 days left to finish my P0. Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. 6 days. 5 days and a night. So basically, I did like stay up a lot over those days and put the whole project together, a good portion of it, in the 5 days. But I caught some kind of bug like 2 days before the project was due and kind of started a lot of it over, redid a lot of it the night before. Well, not the exact night before, but the day before, which you shouldn't do. She literally told us, don't do it, and I did. But I was basically working around the clock to get this project done. The night before it was due, I cried every hour on the hour, just stressed out because I was just running out of time. I underestimated some of the features, like different exception handling that I would run into. So like I said, I was crying every hour on the hour to eventually it was maybe like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was like, I'm gonna get fired after presenting this project, so I might as well start looking for new jobs. And I was looking for new jobs at 3:30 in the morning when I could have just been like calm and level-headed and working on my project, like trying to figure it out. And other people were up too. I could have reached out for help, but I didn't. I just spiraled out of control. So eventually at like somewhere between 5 and 7 in the morning, I was like, it is what it is. I messaged my trainer, let her know that I couldn't present my project because I had too many unhandled exceptions and it was just not gonna work. So she wrote me back and she asked me, does it at least compile? And I said yes, because it did. And so she was like, well, just show us what you have. So my presentation was like maybe 2 minutes. I presented the first few features up until I hit those unhandled exceptions, and I was at least able to create a new user and log into my program. So then the QC team just wanted to see, since I demonstrated that, did it actually save in the database? So then I went and showed them that it did actually save in the database, so that those new users were able to log in and access their account, blah blah blah, right? I flashed through the whole thing, but I realized after the fact that I was so focused on those unhandled exceptions on certain features that I didn't even show them the other features that I had set up. So I only showed them logging or creating a new user and logging in, but I didn't show them the admin side of the app at all. And in the admin side of the application, there were so many other features that I had implemented that I didn't even demonstrate. Imposter syndrome had me in a chokehold, y'all. I was over it. I was done. And I got a red because that was our QC for the week. But it was done. It was over with. I rested for the rest of the day like everyone else. I think that day, like I said earlier, we might have learned HTTP requests very quickly, but then after that we were done for the rest of the day like pretty early because everybody was tired and brains were fried. So after getting a few hours rest, not even a whole day, I immediately get back up and start working back on my P0 to try to get it to completion, because P1, which was going to be due in like 10 days, not even a full 2 weeks, I don't think, was an iteration of P0. We basically took the console application that was P0 and turned it into a web API, P1. With no front end, we just demonstrated what the site could do with Swagger. But if you had some front end skills, you could add a front end to it, but that wasn't necessary. But basically, I needed to get those features that I was missing in P0 done so that my P1 could be better. But let me tell you something. I had so much trouble setting up my environment because I'm using a Mac. We knew in the beginning when we were learning .NET, they suggested using Bootstrap, and I tried to set it up in the beginning, but it was giving me hell. So I was like, let me just see if I can do this on my computer's terminal, like Mac OS system. It should be fine, right? And everything worked up until P1. It was just giving me so much strife that I was done. I was over it. That's when I called it quits. I fought up until the project was due, and then I just wrote my trainer and was like, I'm done. Yes, I quit revature. Now, this is not an idea that came out of nowhere, just born out of my frustrations with building P1. It was something that I had been thinking about for a while before P0 was even completed, but it really like hammered in that night that I was crying every hour and looking for other jobs because I thought I was going to get fired. Now, I won't go into all the details of my quitting just yet. I'm going to save that for a separate video just for the sake of separating concerns. But I will give you guys details in the next video about my decision to quit. The time that P1 was due is when I decided to quit, but it's not exactly when I left. But like I said, I will have a separate video going into my decision to quit and what transpired after that, because I'm sure y'all have some burning questions. Do I owe them some money? That's probably the really only burning question y'all have. So yeah, that is officially the end of my training experience with revature, but also my experience with revature as a whole. As I mentioned, there will be more videos to come because there's more information to come about why I quit. So I welcome you all to drop any questions that you have about that in the comments so I can try to address them when I'm making the next video. I hope you guys have found these videos useful in making your decisions on if you should apply or not. If you liked this video and you found it useful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, as that helps me with the YouTube algorithm and helping more people with finding information about revature. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you are alerted when I drop new videos, not just about revature, but about my life as a whole. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye! Oh my god, my nose is itching like a mother sucker since I went outside. My nose has probably gotten so red.